All right, for more, let's talk to Labour Analyst Michael Bagraim. Thank you so very much for joining us, sir. You're welcome here on SABC News.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on air. I appreciate it.
You're most welcome. All right, so I'm sure you heard that story that, we had just now where, people are being encouraged to have side jobs, but we're also talking about an issue where South Africa's unemployment rate, has inched up now, 32.9 from 32.7, although it's not a big increase. It's an increase nonetheless and something to be concerned about. What do you say?
Well, it certainly is, and it's a lot to be concerned about because it's getting worse every single quarter. And I don't see an end to it. As long as we are using the same factors, we're going to get it worse and worse every single quarter. It has been like that for the last 15 years, quarter by quarter. We need to have a complete restructure to our labor market. We need to restructure, obviously, our education, because a lot of the education isn't geared to jobs in the future. There are jobs available, but you need to have skills. And those skills would be, for instance, electricians, carpenters, plumbers, bricklayers. That sort of job is somehow not catered for in our education system. And unless our youth are going to start looking at that and start gaining those skills, quite frankly, we're not going to be able to create the jobs for them.
Yeah, you talk about the availability of jobs, and, there's also an understanding, as those stats were released, that some sectors are, in fact, showing positive employment gains despite this increase in unemployment. And as a labor analyst, I'll ask you to educate me here. Why is it that, we're seeing some of these sectors that are showing an improvement, but it's not contributing to, this overall number of unemployment and helping to decrease it?
Well, of course, the sectors that are showing the growth are small employers, obviously. But we need to have a look at what is needed at the moment in the country. I mean, obviously, the security industry is growing in leaps and bounds. We're seeing, for instance, some sort of manufacturing. Some of the manufacturing sectors are also growing. But again, you need those skills. For instance, in, say, KwaZulu-Natal in the Cape Province, tourism is a big factor. And if you are able to go and be something in the tourism industry, working in a B&B, in a hotel, in a restaurant, that sort of thing that serves the tourism market, you are going to find a job. The point, again, is to try and volunteer or somehow gain the skill to give you a foothold into that job. Times are desperate, and I've just been watching your earlier program about having a secondary job, a side hustle. The youth call it a side hustle. It's important to do that. I mean, I'm much older now, but I remember always having a side hustle as a waiter. And quite frankly, that gave me the extra money for a push and gave me a lot to be able to manufacture my own job in the future. And we need that. We need people to become entrepreneurs. We need to have that mindset from the youth, because you can't just stand at the back of the queue. I think at the moment we are now in excess of 11.5 million South Africans who want to work and can't find jobs. We must look at the expanded definition of the unemployment, which is closer to 40%, I believe. The figures are telling us 33%. I think we're much closer to 40%. But when you're looking at the various sectors, the youth are the worst off. And in particular, the youth in the townships. Some townships are at almost 70% unemployment. That's not sustainable.
Let's talk about the consequences of that. I mean, let's talk about the consequences of that. This heavy youth unemployment that we're seeing. I mean, it's only a recipe for disaster, especially once, in some of these communities where even, the hope is dead.
Well, that's a nightmare for the whole of South Africa, because that's our future. Our future are these youth that need to get back into the workplace if they were once in even a menial job. And of course, at the end of the day, I don't think our government's helping. The whole structure of our labor market is archaic. People are looking at minimum wages. They're looking at employment equity. All this is internal social engineering, which is not creating new jobs. We need to, and we saw it in the SONA. President Ramaphosa specifically said government doesn't create jobs. Government should be creating an environment for the small business sector to create jobs. And how do you do it? It's quite simple. You deregulate. And once you deregulate, the small business sector will come to the fore and bring in people who don't have a CV. You can't get a job at an enormous company that sits on our stock exchange. You need a good CV for that. So how do you get in? How does a young man, young woman get into the market, the job market? And the only way they're going to do it is through a small business. Then you need to create the environment for that small business to feel comfortable to take a person in. And I believe if you uncouple the small businesses from the bargaining councils, for instance, we'd probably create 500,000 jobs with no cost to anyone within months.
Yeah.
And that would give those people a foothold in the economy. And they would then gain some skills and eventually either become entrepreneurs for themselves or be able to join bigger businesses and build a career and build that CV, which is so desperately needed for the youth of South Africa today. If we don't do that, we're sitting on a volcano. Those people are not going to sit back and say, well, I can't find a job. I'm just going to sit here all day and with a placard saying, please help. They're not going to do that.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you so much. Let's leave it there. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Michael Bagraim, who's a Labour analyst, weighing in there on the unemployment rate inching up to 32.9% from 32.7%.